Maybe. We'll see.
I'm watching on YouTube. We'll see.
I think so. Are we live? Are we live? Is it happening? It's happening! Okay, ready?
Wait, we're live?
We're live. It's happening.
Oh my God.
Ready?
Okay, we can do this.
We practiced this beforehand. 3,
We did.
2, 1. Welcome
Welcome
to
to
BCC
BCC.
Live.
All? BCC all,
BCC
right?
all live
Live.
from our
Yay.
respective living rooms. We are so excited that you're joining us today on BCC All, a show starring myself, Chloe Condon, and
Hi, I'm Becca Rosenthal.
hello. We're so excited to be joining you live for the first time. You guys can hear us and see us, right? Tell us in the chat, hopefully.
There's a massive envelope in the middle of the thing. Can we make it smaller?
I
It got
already
smaller.
did.
Ooh,
I'm
good
on
job.
I'm on it, girl.
You're
So,
impressive.
well, I am a content creator. So we're super excited to share with you this idea that's been in the works for a while. And please bear with us. This is our first time going live. Yeah, so let's just start from the very beginning, a very good place to start. But before we do, Becca, where are you coming from us? Where are you coming to us from? And where are you? Coming live from, I'm in space, obviously, but where are you broadcasting from?
You're in space. I'm broadcasting from my parents' house, my childhood home in Oakland, California. I decided I wanted to quarantine. Ooh, yay, Oakland. I wanted to quarantine with my family because then my mom doesn't have to go to the grocery store and I can keep an eye on my dad who, would go to the grocery store also, and then just kind of be here with my family. So I'm back in high school, but not in high school anymore. And it's been weirdly fun.
And also,
Sort of.
if you're not following Becca already, we'll share her handle and everything in the description. She's Becca Row. And I just tweeted about her. You can find me at Chloe Condon, my name. But Becca posted the most amazing video of her and her family like having a jam session with a clarinet, a guitar, all this different stuff. I was having a lot of family FOMO because I'm just in my apartment with my boyfriend in space. I mean, I'm in dinosaur space. But it was very heartwarming to see that video. I appreciated it. How did that happen?
So my sister decided she wanted to make something of this quarantine and asked me to teach her how to play guitar, which is all I've wanted for the last 15 years I've been playing guitar.
Yes.
So that was super exciting. And then we were playing. And then I asked my dad, who was legitimately in the Stanford band, if he would take his clarinet out. And then he said, "Are you going to make fun of me?" And I said, "Yes, but lovingly." And so then he took it out and then we got him to play and started playing like Mary Had a Little Lamb. And it was the squeakiest thing I'd ever heard. And I loved everything about it. And then I tried, and folks, I don't know if you know this, but woodwind instruments are really hard.
They are. I played alto saxophone. I was in jazz band in elementary school in 5th grade. Shout out to Phoebe Hurst Elementary School. I'm just responding in our chat here. Okay, here we go. There we go. It was so cute. Definitely check out that video of Becca's family playing instruments. It was adorable. I am here I'm not in space, contrary to popular belief. I'm in front of a blanket on the floor in my home because it's very difficult to order streaming equipment right now, and it's on its way. But I am here with my boyfriend in Oakland. My dad is at home in Sacramento, and I'm particularly concerned about him because he's in his 70s, and I helped him order groceries on the Safeway website this week. And it's been
How'd that go?
I did most of it. It wasn't so much teaching him the app yet. Sometimes it takes some time to learn the apps. But if you're ever looking for a fascinating case study on building UX for people who are not familiar with technology, Frank Condon is a great resource. I'm happy to connect you with him to make sure your app is accessible. But it was actually really fun because my dad hasn't ever gotten a grocery delivery before. He asked me if he had to pay with a check or cash. I said, neither, Dad. And also I ordered him lunch on Grubhub yesterday while we waited for his groceries today. So it's been, make sure that you check in on your friends and fam who aren't so technically savvy, because I think we take for granted a lot that we're used to this sort of well, we're not used to all being home and being stuck at home and being remote, but there's a lot of cool tools and tricks. I was actually thinking, Becca, I'd love your opinion on this. So we're going to get into kind of our origin story of what this show is and why we're doing it, but we do want to address that this is happening during a global pandemic, and we want to be very transparent with that.
Wait, there's a global pandemic happening right now?
Yeah, girl, don't go outside. So we're staying safe, we're staying home, and it's been really interesting to kind of adapt our work lives from home. This is like a whole new world and thing, and I'm seeing a lot of communities and conferences go online. But to sort of like take a step back, like why are these two people, these two humans here on your YouTube? Let's see. Oh, I'm looking at our chat. I will be checking the chat. So if you have any questions throughout this entire thing, please drop it in the chat. We're looking at the chat. We are very chatty, but we'll look at the chat. But to give you all kind of intro for how the show started, I think it's important to set the stage of who Becca and I are, why we're here, how we got here, but to kind of like not go all the way back to the origin story. Becca and I actually came up with this idea for this show a couple weeks ago. All the weeks seem to be blending together. But we were at Lake Merritt, a popular kind of park spot here in the Bay Area before we weren't allowed to go to parks, which it seems like a long time ago, but also not a long time ago. Am I right, Becca?
Totally.
And we were sitting in the park in front of the Children's Fairyland sign, and we thought to ourselves, like, we should start like a podcast or something. But like, I don't know what it is, but our dynamic and our vibe is so different. I'm a very quirky, pink-loving musical theater girl turned
You're Elle Woods,
engineer.
just say it.
I'm a Elle Woods meets Michael Scott type, and my vibe is very, very different from Becca. How would you explain your vibe and aesthetic, Becca?
I don't know.
She's cool.
I'm too cool for school. That's totally how I see myself. No, I'm cooler than you, definitely. No, I'm just like sarcastic and dry, and I take up a lot of space, and I'm loud, and I'm outgoing and weird. And if you want to be a part of my weird, come join me. And if you don't, great. I don't care.
Yeah, and we
both have that though.
We both have that weirdness. In fact, I'm wearing a ring. I don't mean to flip people off, so I won't. But my ring says "strange" on it. I feel very strange in this industry because I obviously don't look, act, or sound like most people in it. But we kept kind of like going over this fact that I have a cowlick, you guys, and my bangs. I'm looking at myself and my bangs. I need some dry shampoo.
Okay, you got to stop that.
Okay, I gotta stop. But Becca and I kind of we were like, there's something here. We shouldn't be friends. Like we're very, very, very different. But our paths crossed in a very interesting way. And we're like, there's something here. I don't know what it is. And then flash forward / backwards to a week or two ago, I was hosting a Q&A session with the current Hackbright class. And if you're not familiar with Hackbright is a 12-week software engineering bootcamp for women coming from non-traditional backgrounds into tech. And that is actually how Becca and I met. We were both students at Hackbright, different cohorts at different times. We'll get into all of those details in a second. But we were giving, typically what I do is I have each cohort of Hackbright come to the Microsoft Reactor, which if you're joining us through the Microsoft Reactor meetup page, welcome. Usually this would be in person, but we're doing it from the ground / living room. But I asked Becca super last minute, I was like, hey, are you free today? We're no longer doing, because everything was so up in the air when we were getting used to all this coronavirus stuff. We weren't allowed to go outside or go to the office. And I said, do you have like an hour today to talk to the newest cohort of Hackbright? And of course, Becca was like, yes, of course. And in that chat, we kind of discovered this is a thing. Like this dynamic is really interesting. So we decided to share it with the world. So to get things started, let's start from the very beginning. A very good place to start. And we will get into there's a very, very fun story on how Becca literally took me hostage to be her friend. I was like, no new friends. And she's like, no, girl, I'm going to be your friend. But I would let's start with the origin story of Becca. Let's do First of all, let's do the elevator pitch. Becca, give me your elevator pitch. Who are you? What do you do? What's your life?
Cool. So, hi, everybody. My name is Becca Rosenthal. I'm a software engineer at Reddit. I am born and raised in Oakland, California. I went to college in LA and got a degree in Middle East Studies with a focus in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and then took the natural next step of moving to Jackson, Mississippi to work at the Institute of Southern Jewish Life, which exists and is based in Jackson, Mississippi. And I was a traveling Jewish educator for 2 years who also played a lot of live music and hung out in dive bars with the kind of people who hang out in dive bars in Jackson, Mississippi on Tuesday nights. And then I moved back into my childhood bedroom right after turning 25 with no idea what I was going to do next, and kind of stumbled my way into a coding boot camp, then pestered my way into a job at Reddit. And it's now been 2 years as a software engineer at this little indie website called Reddit.
Wow, that is a very short version of a very, I'm sure, long tale that we'll get into in many of these episodes.
Yes, there's a lot more there.
Okay, my elevator pitch. Hi, I'm Chloe Condon. I have a degree in theater from San Francisco State University. I was raised by 2 artists, a playwright, director, father, and a costume designer mother. My mother died when I was 15. It's okay. That was a long time ago. Which comes back kind of full circle in a second. I then went on to have a theater career. I did Bay Area theater for a very long time, was working 9-to-5 jobs Monday through Friday as an office manager, a virtual assistant. I worked in video game customer support for VIPs that spent over 30,000 K on a game. I did everything except engineering. Oh yeah, we can go in. We should have an old jobs episode. If you have recommendations for things that you want to hear about on this show, put it in the chat. We are going to look at the chat and we will take all your suggestions, or tweet them at me or DM them to me. But yeah,
you say we will take the suggestions? We will read your suggestions.
We'll read them. Yeah. And also, Becca's mom is moderating. She's moderating. So do not say anything that you do not want Becca's mom to see. I would say my dad is moderating, but he's going to watch this later. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Mom.
So, okay, I'm going to finish up my elevator pitch that is totally turning into an escalator pitch, which TM Chloe Condon. So I was doing the theater thing. I was working 9-to-5 Monday through Friday. And I met my boyfriend, who at the time was an engineer at Twitter. I hated Twitter at the time. I was like, Twitter's stupid. Why would you go on there? And now my boyfriend's like, please get off Twitter. But I had never thought. I never had any software engineers in my life. I didn't know that I could be a software engineer. I figured my ship has sailed. And I just happened to see a talk at Google about getting young women, like elementary school, high school, involved in programming. And I was like, well, girls who code. I'm not a girl. I'm a grown-ass woman. Ooh. Bleep. And so, yeah, and then I started to learn. My boyfriend said, you can still learn. And I began learning on my own. And then and of course, inevitably, I started getting targeted ads for boot camps on Facebook when I was on Facebook at the time. And I found out about Hackbright, and I fell in love with their mission statement to change the ratio of women in tech. And I was like, these are my people. And worked at some startups, and now I work at Microsoft as a cloud advocate. And my job is really fun. I get to work with students and teach them all about the cool stuff that you can build at Microsoft. Like I'm building a bread app that I'll talk about in a little bit with my.
Are you calling Sophia. It a brap?
No, but that's a great idea.
Just call it a brap.
Zach Brap. Yeah, I love that. Hopefully Zach Braff won't sue me. And yeah, my job is really cool because I get to like teach people how to do really cool, fun stuff with Microsoft tools. And I love Clippy. My dream has always been to work with Clippy, and I kind of get to work with him on my ears, which is cool. Okay, but origin story time. Becca, how in the world did you find out about software engineering? Like this, your background seems very far removed from that. So what is the Becca origin story? And I'll be looking at the chat while you do this.
Cool. So what you shall know is that when I was in college, second semester senior year, I took one computer science course because I was like, oh, I hear computers are important. So I think I should learn about these. And it was an intro computing for web. And it was the source of the only F I got in my entire academic career. And what I mean by that is the class average on the first test was a 90 something and I got a 50 something. And you should know that I walked out of that test feeling super confident. Like I nailed it and I knew it, minus the nailing it part. So fine. So then I go to Mississippi and I do this job that was insane and the weirdest thing ever. And I learned so much, and I'm so glad that it happened in the past tense. And then I moved back home, and it seemed like to bag groceries, you had to know how to code. So I posted in an SF Women in Tech Facebook group and was like, what's the deal with these boot camps? Like, it must be a scam, right? Like,
yeah, clearly it's a pyramid scheme.
Right. Like the idea that I could take a course and then get a job that pays really well after 3 months and be an engineer is insane. Like engineers are these brilliant people who've been doing this since they were in diapers, and I'm me. Like I'm not that. I was a Middle East studies major. Like I was a Jewish educator. My resume showed me as being a fantastic Jewish educator. Who gives a fuck? Like who cares about that? Right. And so I did a Hackbright's like part-time, couple times a week course and totally got the bug. And I felt myself like I would get home at night and just like, open my computer and keep working and just keep making stuff. I built a rock, paper, scissors game. Oh, I just touched my face. I think I'm going to get coronavirus now.
There's
Anybody
an app
else
for
doing
that?
Like,
there's an app that it's either coming out today or tomorrow, but my coworker M has an amazing, using Azure, it'll alert you if you're touching your face. So I'll find the link for
terrifying.
that right now.
Oh, that's really scary. But anyways, okay. Okay. So, yeah, so I did Hackbright's prep, and then the joke is that I kind of flunked up into the full-time one, and I didn't think I'd be able to get a job as an engineer. I thought that I would, get a job as a product manager, because really all I wanted was to solve interesting problems with people who are smarter than me. And for better and for worse, the tech world is where those problems are getting solved. It's also where they're getting created, but that's not really the point. And so my thought was that if I can get a seat at the table, I could then help direct things in the right direction. And so I never got into tech for the sake of tech. I got into tech for the sake of people. And while I was at Hackbright, I was not doing well. Like I had my first nervous breakdown day 2. I was like bawling over not understanding how GitHub works because, Git is confusing and scary. I mean, I still freak out over Git sometimes when I break things. Like it happens all the time.
And to give people some perspective here, oftentimes, at least when I went to Hackbright, things may have changed a little bit for other boot camps and for Hackbright, but a lot of us were completely new to all these technologies. So in 12 weeks, we were learning recursion, like just basic functionality of a function. It's Python, JavaScript, but it's a fire hose of information being thrown at you. And
totally.
I think like imposter syndrome for me, oh my God, I'll go into it in a little bit, but like imposter syndrome is already a huge, huge, huge thing in this industry. And for folks who are coming from a non-traditional background, like, I don't know about you, but I felt very out of place. Even at a place that was made for people with non-traditional backgrounds, I felt out of place.
Totally. And like I've talked to the Hackbright instructors afterwards, since I'm pretty active there still. And I kept saying like I was so in over my head, and they were like, no, you were doing great. And I was like, maybe my standards are just really off. And I think that's the reality for a lot of us actually, is that we expect to be able to just learn things really quickly and understand them quickly. And it was one of the first things I had done where I wasn't intuitive, or where it wasn't intuitive for me, where I had to work at it, work hard. So then I had a mentor randomly assigned who happened to work at Reddit, and I wasn't a Redditor. John O'Warren, if you're listening, hey, he's my favorite. And he actually came to a show that I was playing right after Hackbright ended. And I'm a songwriter, and I'd written this fictional comedy song called My Mentor and I about matching with a professional mentor on Tinder. But really, it's just 3 minutes of coding puns and Jewish wedding jokes. And so he came to my show. And then he emailed me the next day and was like, send me your resume. He referred me. Meanwhile, Steve Huffman, or Spez, he's the CEO of Reddit, had come to Hackbright to talk. And I emailed him afterwards and was like, hello, I'm the woman that asked you this question. I agree with this part of your answer. I disagree with this.
Pause for a second. I want to make sure everybody heard that piece. The CEO of Reddit. Becca just like fearlessly just was like, hey, CEO of Reddit who came to talk to Hackbright, let me talk to you about me.
If we're going to dive in, let's dive in. So he's at Hackbright. I raise my hand and ask, what is the ethical obligation of founders to anticipate how their products will be used for malicious purposes and to preemptively plan for for those and solve for them. And he said, he gave an answer that basically said, you got to build it and then figure out what's happening and then fix it. And I was like, that's great in some ways. And in other ways that fails. And in the email, I said, I agree with this part of your answer. I disagree with this part of your answer. I'd love to continue the conversation and figure out how to position myself on teams working on these kinds of issues. And he responded and was like, sure, how does a breakfast or lunch sound? And the way that he tells the story is that I pestered my way into the job. And he's not wrong. I totally pestered my way into the job at Reddit. But I made it really hard for him or for anybody else to say she's not going to be a great addition to the team.
I just posted the link to I matched with my mentor and I love it. Listen to it after this. It's hilarious because it sounds like Billy Joel's Piano Man, and I think
100%.
That's actually a great segue into how Becca came into my life because Becca, first of all, full disclosure, there are going to be a lot of musical theater references on this. I don't know what we're calling this, live stream, podcast, whatever it is. But I have always, in my mind, when I hear the sentence young, scrappy, and hungry, to quote Hamilton, I think of Becca, because Becca will hustle her way into what she wants and needs. Now, this isn't everybody's style. It's not everybody's style to be like, hi, I'm Becca, you're my new best friend. But this is literally what happened. I went to Becca's. So I frequently go back to Hackbright and I speak on panels and I do the How I Met Your Mother panel. No, the How I Got My Job panel live. And is that what the panel it was? Yes. I want to say it was the How I Got My Job panel.
No, you came on your own.
It was just me.
Because you did a talk about what does it mean to be a developer evangelist. And I was like, all these engineers are talking about this really intense stuff they do and how they're, working on deep infrastructure stuff for security or machine learning and all of these really overwhelming things. And you were like, hey, so I have a theater degree and social skills and a personality. And I talk to people at work and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is the first person in tech I've heard say anything that resonates with me.
I was super lucky too, because my boyfriend, Ty, who has been in the industry a lot longer than I have been, so if you're unfamiliar with just how crazy and intense and condensed a boot camp is, you kind of go into it being like, oh, it's Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then I go home and do my homework. No, you go home, you do your homework, you cry, you eat a piece of chocolate cake. Then on the weekend, you have assessments. So a lot of times when people go to these boot camps, they're like, oh yeah, it'll be great. I'll go to this wedding. No, oh my God. You're learning recursion over the weekend. You have no time. Cut to me on Thanksgiving. Ty was upstairs with my family and I was with my aunt and uncle, crying and learning recursion, trying to finish my final project. But I say this to say, there's a lot of, when you're kind of doing the boot camp thing, you have kind of a sense of okay, I'm going to become a junior engineer. That's the job that I'm going to go after once I go out into the world. And basically you do the boot camp for 12 weeks and then it's cool, go whiteboard now, bye, push you out of the nest. Which I don't know about you, Becca, totally. But every job I ever had before software engineering was hi, I'm a nice person, here's my resume. And as long as you don't slap them on the face, you usually get the job if you're qualified. But having to whiteboard was auditioning a lot for me. It was just except in an audition, you know what song and dance usually, unless you're given sides that you at least get to read over, that you get to do. So whiteboarding was just I'm sorry, I have to what in the room? Stuff that I don't know thrown at me. So it's kind of interesting to go into this kind of new world and be okay, I'm going to be a junior engineer. But just by chance, I was in the car on the way to my friend Trina's wedding, which I did all my assessment on Saturday and was still I gotta go home and finish my assessment. And I looked at my boyfriend and I said, that part of your job, because my boyfriend is an Android developer and he speaks at a lot of conferences, and I'd given him feedback in the past of oh, hey, in this part of your presentation, do this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that part of your job where you give talks, is that a job? Content? And he was actually, yes. Let me introduce you to some folks. So I ended up meeting he introduced me to some really amazing women in the field, Bear Douglas. I also met with Monica, who worked on the Polymer team. I think she still works over there at Google. And not only was I able to kind of see myself in these women in the industry, oh, wow, I can use this skill set, my engineering skills are here, but my public speaking skills are here. So how can I kind of use these things and leverage both of them? So for me, I really kind of found my niche in this industry. And it's pretty typical that people will kind of be in the trenches for a while and be in engineering, get their footing. So I obviously, to this day, I am still doing a lot of catch up on that side of things. But I get to bring this whole wealth of knowledge and experience in community building and content writing and things that really, before I went to Hackbright, I was like, why did I get this stupid degree? Why did I get this degree in drama? My degree is literally in drama. What am I doing here? What is my life?
You're learning how to talk to people, though. Like, that's the thing, though. Like, because what you were just saying about the gap between like your social skills and your ability to be with people and talk, and then your like engineering skills being off, like, I totally agree. My attitude going into the job search was, can I fool somebody into hiring me as a software engineer? Because obviously I should not be a software engineer, and any idiot would be an idiot to hire me as one, because that's way too much money to pay somebody that is as incapable as I am. But the reality is that, like, if you can be fun to work with and fun to teach, like, anybody can learn how to code. It's not that hard. And I say that as somebody that, like, I literally deployed code today that like broke and then had to revert it. Like, anybody can do that. Like, people make mistakes all the time.
Yeah,
and
we should have a mistakes episode. I'm gonna write that down. Mistakes episode. And we had Nintendo nerds. Hi, Nintendo nerds. We'll definitely do an imposter syndrome episode for sure. That is a topic I'll give you a teaser of that episode that will catch us up to where Becca and I met. I had imposter syndrome for the entirety of Hackbright. Nobody believes me at Hackbright when I say that, when I come and speak back there, but it used to drive me crazy because all my boyfriend's friends who were dudes who'd been working in software engineering a long time were just like, that never goes away. And I was like, that's easy for you to say. You work at Airbnb. You have a job. I don't even know if this is going to happen for me. And it drove me crazy. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go away. Sorry to admit it, having been in the industry several years. But
it does. It can, though.
It can.
Because you just learn to ignore it because you know it's never going to go away. So then you just suppress it. Yeah. You just tell it, like, go away. Because if I'm never going to be good enough, then fuck it, I'm good enough.
Like that song from Book of Mormon, turn it off like a light switch. That's literally what I do with imposter.
So good.
Don't sing too much or we have to pay for the rights.
Okay. Hi, Bobby Lopez. Hi, Chris Lopez. We love you guys.
So I think that imposter syndrome is very real. But I'll tell this quick story, and then we'll go back to the Chloe and the meeting of the Chloe and the Becca.
We got this.
But I every day my boyfriend would say, "How was school today? How was Hackbright?" And I would say, "That's good. I haven't gotten kicked out yet." And I genuinely meant it. I was like, they are gonna figure out that I do not belong here, and I'm just this actress pretending to be an engineer. Like, and literally every single day, how's it going? Well, I haven't been kicked out yet. I'm doing terrible. Obviously, I do not belong here. And on our way to our graduation ceremony, which I was speaking at, I was one of like 3 people presenting. We're in the Uber, and my boyfriend goes, "So I guess they're not gonna kick you out, huh?" And I literally just deadpan was just like, there's still an hour. Like, I was convinced. I was like, they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna pull off my Scooby-Doo mask, and this is it. This is the end for me. But I had a really big light bulb moment where we were presenting our final projects to. So at Hackbright, you build a final project. Mine was. We should share what our final projects were. Mine was called Latergator, and it was a delayed social media posting app because I'm obviously really obsessed with Twitter and Instagram. But it was inspired by, I went to Japan and my boyfriend was making fun of me a lot because I would wake up at 3 a.m. to like post a thing for my followers in California. So I basically automated that with the Twitter API and the Facebook API to post at a future time that I specified. What was your final project?
So my project was called Despair Change, and I built a micro donation app. The idea was that every time I felt like the world was going to shit, I wanted to be able to click a button and give $1 to the ACLU, and allow for it to be as easy as it is to Venmo a friend to send small donations to organizations. But obviously I didn't make it for real, so I was giving money to like Rent a Swag and the Alt ACLU and the Derek Zoolander Foundation for kids who can't read good and want to learn to do other stuff good too, which actually was a good learning thing for my project because I figured out that I needed to add a display name field in my database Because when you have one organization name that's that long, like you have to account for outliers. So it was one of my favorite like real worldy lessons to talk about in interviews about things that I didn't plan for, but then like, look what happened when I built this project. And then I was also able to say like, look, I'm a values-based engineer, like nonprofit background, micro donations, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I think that there's like, I always just love to hear, especially because Hackbright is typically folks who are brand new to the industry, what they decide to build, like what their first project is. I'll just highlight one that I really enjoyed. My friend, or my cohort mate and friend, Charlie. Hi, Charlie, if you're listening. Charlie McLean, she works at Trello now. We became BFFs during our Hackbright cohort because I was like, what's your project? And she's like, well, I want to use data, so I found all of the UFO sightings in the United States, and I made a heat map, an alien heat map of all the different UFO sightings, and you can like, edit it based on time and location, and she was able to like determine a lot of interesting, like Thursdays at like 2 p.m. in this particular area, there's a lot of UFO sightings, and there's like some interesting, drug use over there as well.
So Chloe, how'd we meet?
Yes, how did we meet? Well, good question. Someone said Derek Zoolander School doesn't get the praise it deserves. I could not agree enough. What is this, a school for ants? So I was presenting to the Hackbright cohort, like, hey, here's who I am, here's what I do, because I think it's really important that people know when they come into the industry. Someone even mentioned in the chat, like, hey, coding's not super, super easy for everyone. I totally agree. I myself have dyscalculia, which is dyslexia with numbers. So typically when I'm doing number-related engineering, that can be very difficult for me. But the creative side of my brain to like create apps and collaborate with other people is very strong. So I find it very, very important to speak, especially to groups of new folks who are coming into the industry, that you don't have to go into a junior engineering role. There's a lot of different, there's sales engineers, there's developer evangelism, there's advocacy, there's content creation. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, which I don't think is shared that often, especially in boot camps. And so Becca was like, and I'm not joking, y'all, in my slides, I still have the slides today, I can show them to you. I said, can I get coffee with you? And I said, no. And I had literally, you can look this up on Medium, I wrote an article called My Year of No, because my manager at the time at Sentry was like, you need to learn how to say no to things. And my boyfriend, he's like, can you be home ever and like not say yes to coffee all the time?
And you're like, no, I cannot be home ever.
And I think that's an important thing too, like to even just say out loud to people who are going through this, having to work from home, you can say no to chats, and like not everybody's an extrovert, it's okay. But I was finding that I was taking a lot of time doing coffee meetings with people and sharing kind of the same story over and over. So I did a lot of writing, and I tried to get a lot of that information like into a doc to share it with people when people would reach out. And I was like, I had this slide that said, hey, can we get coffee? And I said, no. And then I linked to my Year of No article, and in which I had all these resources in it and stuff that's like, I can't get coffee, I don't have time to meet with everybody, but here's like all the podcasts and stuff. It can feel like I'm sitting right next to you, but I'm in your ears. And Becca did not listen to that. And she's like, actually, no, I'm going to be the last person that you ever get coffee with. Hi, I'm Becca. I don't remember how you contacted me. Did you LinkedIn message me, or you Twitter DM'd me or something?
I probably LinkedIn messaged you, and I probably said, hi, fellow musical theater nerd here. And then I probably said something along the lines of, you're the first person who's spoken that has had social skills that makes me think that I can do what you do. And I think I probably said, like, there's no way I can be an engineer, but I can, be a show pony. Will you teach me how to be a show pony? With like a technical show pony. I probably said it with different words.
I don't think that's the words you used, but
I'm sure it's not, but we should go back and find it. And then I probably said, I will come to your office and find you, because that was always my trick. It was, can I meet you at the place you already are?
Yes. Of course, always ask permission. Don't stalk people. Don't be creepy. But it was her hustle really impressed me. And I was like, all right, I see a lot of myself in this girl. Okay, I'll take the coffee with her. Very reluctantly, I was like, but don't tell anybody in your cohort, because like I can't meet with everybody. And that is how this friendship was sort of made. Then fast forward to, I was working at Sentry at the time, and we had this really wonderful meetup called Sentry Scouts. That was a camp-themed meetup. We had s'mores and patches and hot chocolate, and it was a very campy vibe, and we were making a commercial for it. And I said, Becca, you write songs, you're job searching, can we pay you like a couple $100 and you write the song for us? And of course she did, and it was amazing. It was a lovely campfire song. And the rest is history. Now Becca and I have...
Wait, there's something worth noting about that song, though, which is the first time I performed it at a meetup was the day after I signed, or the day before, actually, I signed my offer for my job at Reddit. So I showed up and I made myself a name tag that had Becca Reddit. And then I start talking to people there, and I met this guy named Andy Tuba, who's the greatest. And he was like, "Oh, I work at Reddit." And I was like, "I'm a sham." Because at that point, I still thought they were punking me and that I wasn't actually hired, because who would hire me as a software engineer? Reddit's a real company.
Full circle moment with Andy Tuba too. I'm trying to find that picture.
I had breakfast with him this morning.
Love Andy Tuba.
We had Google Hangout breakfast.
So if you're tuning in and you are not a bootcamp grad, but you're more interested in who are these people and what are bootcamps and how can I help get non-traditional people into this space, Andy Tuba I met because he volunteered with Reddit when Reddit did a whiteboarding session with Hackbright. A lot of companies will donate their time and energy to help do whiteboarding practice, and it's great practice for people who need to practice interviewing and interviewers. And Andy happened to be in my group, and I think we connected on Twitter or something like that, LinkedIn, and then Becca ended up meeting one of her future coworkers, all happenstance and beautiful and kismet, and it was great. And so then, it was wonderful. I remember that day you were like, "Chloe, I got a job offer from this other company, and I think I'm going to get another job offer." And I think it's really important to point out, because I do mentor a lot of folks, and I mention this a lot in our regular bootcamp office hours, that the highs, especially with your first job, the highs are very, very, very high, and the lows are very, very, very low. I sure can speak to my experience of breaking down crying in a Whole Foods when I got a rejection from the LinkedIn apprenticeship program that I so thought I was going to get. And I always tell people, especially folks that I'm mentoring, that you will have moments where you break down in the middle of the street crying. I literally saw this with my friend Kimberly, and you'll be like, "I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen to me." And then you see them a week later, and they're like, "I got 2 job offers." So it's not just you. This is really, really hard what you're doing, making this career transition, and it's not for the faint of heart. And you don't just first of all, you don't just wake up one day and decide to go to a boot camp. It's a huge commitment and life change and everything like that. I think we should also do a episode. I'm going to write this down on how to choose a boot camp, because not all boot camps are created equally. If you've been reading the news and press and stuff like that, I think it's really important to do research and find a good fit for you wherever you are in the world. But yeah, I think that there's really something to be said for bringing your authentic creative self to this industry, which is something I respect and love so much about Becca. And I think a big reason why we've bonded is we're very different from a lot of people that you typically see on your screens and stages. And I was recently telling Becca this, and a lot of people this, that a big reason why I find it really important to share this information is, and to share these stories, and we'll probably feature other people on this show as well, don't worry, you won't get totally sick of our faces, is that, there's a lot of different flavors and shapes and sizes of engineers out there, and that being your authentic self, there may be a tendency to kind of, I kind of looked around and I was like, "Oh, is the uniform we all wear Patagonia?" Okay, cool. It was kind of like when I went to my first bar method class and I was like, "Oh, are we all supposed to wear Lululemon? Did I and a big engagement ring on our finger? Oh God." But you can be you, and you can be successful in this industry.
And I think that's also part of why I think that you and I, when we were talking about making a podcast, it's the most self-indulgent thing to do. I love the sound of my voice. You love the sound of your voice. Oh my God, let's just talk. And we'll record it. People can listen to it. This is amazing. But also both of us have really good failure stories, and we both tell them in ways that I think are really compelling, because both of us are really open about the good and the bad and the ugly.
And we fell on our face many a time.
So hard. Many
a time.
I mean, should I mention the story that I had a hacker rank challenge that was supposed to take an hour to do 2 problems, and then by the end of the hour, one of the problems had no solution and the other one got stuck in an infinite loop. And then I spent 7 hours the next day finishing one of the problems, emailed the recruiter, and then had her update the team, got another problem, took me 14 hours to do what was supposed to take me 1, and then I still didn't get the job. Casual things.
And I'll say a big thing that we talk about a lot in our bootcamp office hours, and don't worry, this is more of an origin story episode. It won't just be us talking about ourselves the whole time. We will definitely be going into a bunch of different details on things like how to make your resume properly formatted and how to stand out with your landing page and how to interview and how to give your elevator pitch and all those fun things. So Don't worry, future episodes, stay tuned. But yeah, I think like a big takeaway that a lot of people who come to our bootcamp office hours usually say is, which the one unfortunate thing, we do have the chat, of course, but we aren't able to all kind of meet in one place. I'll look into starting maybe a Discord channel or something for folks to hop in there, or a WhatsApp thing. But I think it's really important to know that if you're currently job searching as a non-traditional background engineer, or even job searching in general, that like it's difficult. It's not a super easy, like people may make it look really easy, but I think a big thing for me was talking to other women in my cohort being like, hey, I got this interview question and I totally bombed it. Like, how would you guys do this? And then talking about it with them. Totally. And when people would come to our office hours, remember back in the day when we could all meet publicly in a space? We would, I think the number one comment I would get from folks at the reactor, at the Microsoft reactor, was, a really important takeaway was talking to other people and understanding I'm not the only one struggling here, that like this is hard. And I talked to this person, this lady, and she said that, you know, she also interviewed at this place and it was also hard for her. And then I talked to this person. So you're not alone. What you're making a career transition, first of all, is a huge mental health undertaking. I don't know about you, but like theater, engineering, very, very different. Where are all the women at? But I think also like it's a very vulnerable, scary thing to put yourself out there, especially in a new industry. And I don't know about you, Becca, but when I was an office manager, my full-time job was I used to hate LaCroix. I put LaCroix in a fridge for 4 to 5 hours a day. And I never had a meeting before. Like, I wasn't important enough to be in a meeting before I became an engineer. So even just learning, my old manager, Dan, hi Dan, likes to tell the story that the first startup I ever worked at was CodeFresh. It was a Docker CI/CD company based out of Mountain View. And he loves to tell the story that, you know, we did a sprint, and I was so new to engineering and to tech, I thought you had to complete everything from the sprint in 1 week. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I only got to do like some of it. And he's like, girl, it's fine. Like, so there's a lot of like things that you're going to totally fall on your face and stumble on and learn along the way. And you're going to deploy to production and break things. It happens. Like we're all learning. We're all lifelong learners here.
Well, I totally agree with that. But I also think that it's important to note that like, so the big thing that I hear from people who are trying to transition in is like, how do I make myself sound like I have more experience than I do? Or how do I like trim off the edges that make me fit, you know, or that keep me out of fitting into the box that I imagine a software engineer should fit into? And the reality is like, you're not going to get a job by being a code bot. You're going to get a job for being you. And then all of the extra things you bring to the table are going to add to your ability to do the work. And so I think that the more that people can realize like your past experience is not a problem, your past experience is not a liability, your past experience is something to talk about and something that gives you a different perspective. And so leaning into that is so much more valuable. Like when I was trying to get a job at Reddit, my argument was I'm a Middle East studies major. I spent all this time learning multiple perspectives of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and being able to speak, you know, Zionist language to Palestinians and, you know, anti-Zionist ideals to Zionists, and be able to get people to like understand multiple sides of the spectrum in a non-offensive way. Like I can code switch between technical and non-technical people. That's not a skill that you learn in a class. Like that's a skill that you learn by having done stuff. Yeah. And so being able to translate your skills from before tech into tech is just as important as actually learning the technical skills. Like all you have to do in the interview is be an adequate coder to prove that you can learn and get better. That's it.
And be a human during the process. And I think like a huge piece of advice that I got from one of my mentors during Hackbright was people know that you're junior. Like when you're interviewing, like I freaked out because I was interviewing at this company, and Hackbright, of course, is Python, JavaScript, and they had me do a take-home thing in Ruby, and I said, that's great. I didn't learn Ruby, but I will do this to the best of my ability. They brought me in, and they said, great, we're going to give you your whiteboarding stuff in Ruby, and I was like, oh my God, what do I say? What do I do? Like, I'm not going to be able to, I don't know all the syntax. And I think it was either my boyfriend or one of my mentors said, like, be honest with them. Like, they know you're a boot camp grad. Like, you're not fooling anybody. Like, take a look at your resume. You worked at the Disney store in college. So
that happened to me at Reddit too, though. My first on-site interview was, it was like, all right, we're going to do the JavaScript portion of the interview. And I was like, that's nice. I've prepared for an interview in Python. And my interviewer, Sam Caro, who's like my favorite human ever, straight up walked out of the room to go ask the recruiter what to do. I'm like freaking out. She comes back in a few minutes later and says, so we're going to do this interview in JavaScript, even though you didn't prepare, and we'll just Google and ask questions and all that stuff. And I've talked to her about it since then. And she said that I actually did really well because I didn't pretend to know stuff. I just Googled it and asked her questions. And so for a junior engineer to show off that I wouldn't get flustered and freak out and instead show off that I'm willing to learn and ask is so better.
Be honest with where you're at in your learning journey. I mean, like, I can't tell you how many, like, I interviewed at Google for a engineering and residency program. I felt like I nailed the first interview. Second interview, I thought I did so bad that I cried after. Then I got a third interview and I was like, excuse me? Like, I was like, are you sure? And then I did the third one and then I did the fourth one and I was just like, I'm confused. I don't see what you see in me. Obviously, I did not end up getting that job. This was many years ago. But it kind of taught me that, like, in these whiteboarding interviews, and we'll go into way more detail on whiteboarding in another episode, but that they're not looking for the right solution necessarily. They want to see how your brain works. They want to see how you work out the problem. They want to hear you talk about it out loud, which I think, because you can tell because we have this show and we talk a lot and we're very verbose, that while I wasn't the most skilled engineer at the time, and I couldn't solve the problem to its completion in the best, O-of-N solution, that I was really, really good at describing my thought process, and I wasn't afraid to do that. I mean, years of auditioning and being told you're too fat, too skinny, too tall, too short will do that to you. So highly recommend being an actress for 20 plus years. But Becca, we're at 4:46 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I put in the chat, if anybody has any questions, we're going to usually save the last 10 to 15 minutes of this show to answer questions from folks live on the show. Of course, if you have any other questions and you're tuning in later, drop them in the comments section. If you say anything rude or nasty,
my mom will get rid of it so fast.
We have a moderator that will come for you, not physically, but she will be upset. I don't have a mom, but my dad will disapprove. He won't know how to click the link to look at it, but he will not like it. So feel free to drop questions there. I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell while we wait for some questions. I totally sprung this on Becca in the 5 minutes before we went live. So while I share, I'll let Becca either look for something that she wants to share, or you can share something next time, Becca. But I'm going to share a little thing here that I'm going to put on the screen. Bear with us, y'all. This is our first time doing. Okay, aka.ms/breadhead. If you go there, I am currently building an app with my gal Sophia, who worked on my NASA app with me recently. And we're actually using Azure Functions, which is basically, it's a function that exists at an HTTP request. It's hosted through Azure. I've built things like my fake boyfriend app on there, my ADHD reminder stuff. Love Azure Functions, super functional. But they have a timer function, and we've seen so many people on the interwebs, on Twitter, with their sourdough starters. In fact, Becca, I started using Reddit. I know you'd be proud of me. I'm on Reddit all the time now. I'm so proud of you. I was on Reddit and someone put, this is the most San Francisco thing I've ever seen. And it was like my sourdough child, I'm selling pieces of my starter. Because everyone on Twitter is making sourdough now because we're all stuck at home. This is a fake bread that I got on Amazon.com, that I have ADHD, so it's something I play with. So if you ever have a conference call with me, this is what I'm doing with my hands, spoiler alert. But if you go to aka.ms/breadhead, you can get a head start on the Azure Functions piece that Sophia and I are going to be posting later this week. And yeah, I'm really excited. It'll tell you, so long story short, when you're making sourdough bread, you need to feed it and take pieces out of it. Sophia is the master bread maker. In fact, Sophia came to our boot camp office hours physically at the reactor, and she was working at a bakery in San Francisco when she was doing our office hours. So this is how these magical office hours, magic happens in them. So now we're making a bread.
You mean you like meet people and you talk about things you have in common, and then that's what leads to like friendships and relationships and networking and all of the things?
These days on the internet only, but yes. Also, I'm going to do a shout out to an app that I'm really enjoying that has given me happiness. Two things actually that have given me happiness during the quarantine. If you just want to do that instead of show and tell, you can, Becca. I have been watching Vivacious from RuPaul's Drag Race live stream every day, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. She is DJing live with actual records, y'all, and is giving me the dance party that I need throughout the day when I'm coding and getting my work done. But I also downloaded the app House Party, and I highly recommend it. Apparently, it's really hip with the kids and the teens, but it's been a really cool, easy way to meet and communicate with people and just kind of have like ad hoc, fun little chats and games and adventures. So yeah.
Fun.
Let's see. Now you.
So I have nothing exciting to show and tell. Though on the other side of the room there is a banjo guitar thing, but whatever, I'll find it later. But there was a question in the chat that I do want to look at and actually answer, which was asking me, how would I become an adequate coder? So I want to back up and explain what I did in the months between when I finished Hackbright and when I got my job at Reddit. It was almost to the day 2 months from when I finished Hackbright to when I got my offer at Reddit. So in the beginning, I went on a million coffee dates just so I could practice introducing myself, saying, hi, I'm Becca, I'm a software engineer, and not laugh, because objectively, that's funny.
That's important.
I've been doing it for 2 years, and I still think it's funny.
It's weird.
It's still a joke. Super weird. Like I am a Middle East studies major and a Jewish educator, and
say it to your
now
Uber
I'm definitely
driver.
not.
If you're looking to like beta test it, well, we can't go into Ubers right now, but when we're able to get in Ubers again, say it to like, say
anybody.
It to the person that you see in the hallway that you're 6 feet away from.
Yeah. So I went on a million coffee dates, and then I did a million practice problems, because my logic was, you can either do kind of two things after boot camp. You can either learn by building projects, or you can learn by studying for the interview. And I chose to study for the interview, assuming that I would be able to learn any of the skills I needed to learn on the job. And so there were some tutorials of, a GitHub tutorial and a GraphQL tutorial and kind of other things that I looked at, but mostly I just like grinded like interview cake and cracking the coding interview and stuff. And then fast forward to when I started at Reddit, my manager asked me to make sure to dedicate at least an hour or two a day to tutorials, whether it be a GitHub tutorial or a GraphQL tutorial or whatever else. Notice the same tutorials that I was doing before to study for the interviews, I'm now being paid to do. And so how to become an adequate coder, the only way to do it is the same way you become adequate at anything else, which is to practice. And in the beginning, it's really slow and it's really frustrating, and you spend hours banging your head against the wall, and then you figure out the problem is that you have an extra set of quotation marks around something, and your variable name is now a string, and now nothing works. Which, fun fact, my cousin who's in college texted me 2 days ago, being like, do you know Python? Like, I need help with my computer science homework. And I was like, I code exclusively in Python at work. Let's chat. And I was like helping him with his CS homework. And it was literally, he was putting quotation marks on his variable names, right? And like, when we talk again in a month, when he's, stuck on some other problem, like that problem will be gone, right? It used to take me forever to write for loops, and I couldn't even bother with list comprehensions. And now I write list comprehensions in my sleep. So like, how do you become adequate? You do it in time. The other thing I'll say is that when I was studying for the interviews, I was very aware that confidence was going to be my most important thing. So instead of finding the hardest problems I could find and, trying to get those, I said, no, let's get the basics. Let me make sure that I can do anything with strings and lists and dictionaries and binary trees. And in the beginning, I didn't understand how to use them. And by the end, I did. And now I've forgotten how to do everything with trees and everything with recursion, because I never have to do it.
Wow.
But I just drilled the basics, right? Like coding, at least the interviews, are a lot like the SAT. The only thing they show is how good you are at taking the SAT.
Yeah.
And so you just practice. It's all repetition. It's all practice. And then in time, you you get better. The other thing I'll say is ask a million questions.
Yes.
So particularly when you're new, like even now, like I'm 2 years into this, and I ask, like my job at this point is asking people who are smarter than me how they would approach a problem, implementing their solution, and then being told I'm brilliant. And it's very funny. And then I give them credit because they deserve it. And then they look at me and they say, no, you did it. I planted the seed, you ran with it. And everybody gets to benefit from it. And so long as you don't ask the same question more than once or twice, people love when you ask questions.
Yeah.
So take advantage of the fact that like you're not stupid, you're just new. And the only way you get better is by asking questions and being taught the thing.
And
so
it's hard
take a lot
and
of solace.
Infuriating and like
completely.
So we had a question here that was from Brendan that was asking, you mentioned cracking the coding interview. I've heard that book name thrown around a lot. I actually would advise don't read a book. Like it's the biggest thing
books
that
are
happened
bad.
to me.
Chloe Condon said it here.
Yeah. No, books are great. Actually, if you're looking for a good beginner book, April Vogan Code, my BFF, is coming out with a book very soon that's for kids, I think, that's Python focused. That would be a really great recommendation. But something that happened to me during Hackbright was I was like, oh my God, this just isn't sticking for me. And one of the TAs was like, well, what are you doing to when you're doing the homework and assignments? And I said, well, I read the notes over and over. And she goes, no. You have to like physically get it in your body. So if you're a theater person like me, it's like choreography. You can't just watch a dance and get really good technique watching the dance. You have to actually physically do it and get it in your body and get used to your shortcut keys and get used to like GitHub. Really 90% of getting used to GitHub is just getting used to it, just using it. So I would say try to avoid books, just jump right in. I know Pluralsight is a really, really great resource. I've seen websites like Udacity and Udemy do some really interesting free resource stuff. There's a lot of really great free code camps out there. I have a pal who's doing one over in Prague right now that sounds really amazing. I think it's Green Fox Academy or something. So these places, especially now with being stuck home, do exist. And I would just recommend start with a CSS HTML class. We've all, if you're my age, if you're 30 something, I'm 30, you've probably...
You're 30?
I'm 30 years old. I appear 14, but I'm 30. I read 16. I played teenagers on stage the majority of my life, so I don't feel 30. But I would say, just try it. Because if you're my age demographic, you use LiveJournal, you use MySpace, you have some basic HTML skills, I'm sure, from the very little that we did when we were younger. And if not, it's really fun and creative, and you can get started with that. Then you can start to have the back end. And I would say before you fully invest in a boot camp, and we'll go into this in a lot of detail in another episode, make sure it's something you like, make sure you kind of choose the right path for you on okay, do I want to learn UX? Do I want to use front end, back end? What kind of boot camp do I want to go to? But I think learning by doing really, it's almost like crafting, craft something, make something with code. I view coding a lot like crafting.
Yeah. There's something you said in that I want to really jump in on, which is the find something you like and run with it. And so I think the key to learning anything, and I say this now as a guitar teacher teaching my sister how to play guitar, is that there's no right way to learn anything. The question is, what is the thing that gets you excited to keep learning and to keep working? So for me, I loved doing problems that were cracking the coding interview type algorithm problems, or, the Hackbright had a million problems that were given a list of lists, is this a valid Sudoku puzzle? And it's oh, that's a fun brain teaser. And when I figured it out, it would be so satisfying. Other people are this is stupid. Why am I spending my time trying to figure out if a list of lists is a Sudoku problem? Who cares? And that didn't excite them. Great. They went and built apps and built web apps, did whatever. I, learned what Sudoku problems are because that excited me. And so I would say figure out what works for you and don't get distracted by what you should be doing or what you think other people think you should be doing. Do the thing that works for you, right? I didn't write a song about matching with a mentor on Tinder because I was and we didn't match on Tinder, by the way. I feel a need to say that right now. No. I'd never seen him on Tinder. No. Jono, no. Fictional. But anyways,
I also think it's important to share that, just because your boot camp is Python, JavaScript, or Ruby, or whatever it may be, the boot camp and whatever course you end up taking just teaches you how to learn a language. many, if not all of the women from my cohort code in completely different languages than they did at Hackbright. Sometimes there's even proprietary languages at certain companies. I know Workday used to be that. But really, it's going to give you like the skills to look at a problem, be able to figure it out. Most languages are roughly the same with different syntax and different things that you have to learn, obviously, for each one. But I think the biggest thing for me was when I was an actress, it's like, okay, I'm an actress and that's what I do. But the coolest thing about tech is, I mean, look at April. Like, you can start with Python and then go into VR. You can start with, you're not locked into a certain language or ecosystem or even technology. Like, there's so much. We're lifelong learners no matter where we're at, and we always need people in all sorts of fields. So, yeah. Okay, any parting words? We're at 4:59. And we're super excited. We're going to be doing these every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. BCC all. Our logo is amazing and by the wonderful So Sploosh on Twitter. Thank you so much. We love it so much. And yeah, I'm going to be sharing videos on my YouTube channel, and they'll be living there for the time being. I'm also going to be sharing some stuff on the gram as well. I'm at Get Forked, like GIT Forked on the gram. Becca is not on Instagram.
That's a good one.
But anything you want said to Becca through Instagram, I will screenshot it and send it to her. So don't send anything.
You can find me on Reddit. Sing Shred Code on Reddit.
What is it?
Sing Shred Code.
Sing Shred Code on Reddit. And we'll share a bunch of resources
on Twitter.
In the description, and we're so excited. We are feeling a little stir crazy at home, and we want to know what you want to hear about. So tell us in the comments what would be useful for you to hear. What kind of questions do you have? Of course, this is not exclusive just for bootcamp grads. We also want to make sure that we're inclusive of lifelong learners as well, and people who are just kind of curious, like what it would look like to make a career switch. And we want to be transparent with our journey and how fun and not fun it can be, and share all the cool, exciting projects we're working on. So I don't know how to wrap this thing up. We're just going to be like, bye.
Bye. Are we like going to we'll work on the sign off.
Well, yeah, tell us how we should sign off, and tell us what segments you want to hear, because we came up with the idea of, I'm not going to say it because it's not safe for work, but like blank, marry, kill. We were like, deploy, enjoy, destroy. So like an app you enjoy, an app you want to fix, or an app you want to get rid of. So like
another segment idea we had was, is this normal? Where we do like a Dear Abby style, where people would write in like, there's weird things happening at work. Is this normal?
Yeah, like anonymous questions. Be like, this person said this thing in this meeting. What should I do? So yeah, tell us what you want to hear, because this is really not for us. This is for you, as much as it feels like we're talking just to each other. It's wonderful to read all your comments in the chat, and we are looking at them and are taking note of all the stuff that you're saying. So I'm going to turn off the live stream. Becca, thank you.
Yes.
All 29 people. I think we had like 32 people join us at one point.
Wow.
Very exciting. So,
a lot of people. Thank you all.
Yeah, and maybe we'll make merch. I don't know. Who knows? Tell us what you want. Who knows? Do you want BCC
tell you what you really, really want? Because I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
And on that,
I want it.
We will end
All right, bye, guys.
On a Spice Girls quote. Bye.